My name is Shoshanah Jacobs. I spend most of my time doing research on seabirds in the Gulf of Alaska with my colleague Kyle Elliott from McGill University. We're studying a broad range of questions generally related to foraging ecology of different seabird species that are feeding at different niches. This means that we can answer a bunch of questions related to ocean system changes that we may not be able to detect through more traditional sampling methods. I take on a big question by first trying to break it down into as many small, manageable parts as possible. It allows me to make sure that I get to work on that big question for a lot longer too. Smaller questions are easier to answer, and you can actually feel like you're making progress. So with the seabirds, we don't ask, how does climate change affect biology or populations? We ask small, tiny questions about how subtle changes in temperature might affect foraging strategy, foraging behavior, and then we take the answers to those small parts to build up a better understanding of our larger question. I've spent quite a bit of time in the Arctic and gotten to know a lot of really great people. It gives me the luxury of being able to pick the best places in the Arctic to do research. Right now, I've got my program split between a research colony in Greenland and also on Middleton Island in the Gulf of Alaska. I also spend time thinking about how students think, biology students in particular. I have another area of my research called knowledge translation and transfer. And here I try to understand how either students or educated adults in another field might approach the discipline of biology, what some of the misconceptions are, and what we can do to more clearly communicate it. This allows me to take the research and put it into practice into my teaching. The big questions that I ask in my science education research are more relevant to what I see going on in the classroom. So I get a lot of feedback from my students about their struggles, their challenges, and I direct my research to be able to address those specific challenges and struggles. That way I'm able to provide the best teaching opportunity possible for our students and therefore learning opportunity. Teaching for me is a very personal activity. I am the child of two professors, and so my whole life has been dedicated to teaching. They have become role models for me on what effective teaching is. So it's a challenge for me, it's a struggle for me to be able to make sure that I'm creating an environment where student learning is maximized. And I spend a lot of time thinking about how I can make it better and not make things easier, but challenge my students to be able to get them onto a path that'll lead to where they want to end up at the end of their careers. So teaching is a constant struggle, a constant challenge, a puzzle that I enjoy, that keeps me motivated. And most certainly it is never boring. Even when you've taught a course for 4 or 5 years in a row, it only becomes more interesting and more challenging. I pick graduate students not based on their academic performance. I pick them based on everything else. That's the most important thing. I pick them based on personality, based on motivation, enthusiasm, curiosity, and because of the places where I do work, they have to be motivated by things other than luxury showers and warm beds at night. So they have to be hardy. Obviously, intelligence is important, but I often find that grades don't really reflect that. So I try to spend time with potential students to make sure that we understand each other and understand what the expectations are. I have to admit that when I was doing my undergrad, as well as my master's and my PhD, I was a little bit I felt daunted about going into research. I thought that it would be something that I wouldn't be able to do successfully and that really only the great minds of the world can do it. But I've actually learned through the work that I do that persistence as well as collaboration is really the key to a successful research program. And so I wanted to get involved in research because it allowed me to meet amazing people and to do really amazing work that I wouldn't have otherwise been able to do. I wish I could tell every undergraduate student to be patient. I get a lot of first-year students and they're rightfully concerned. They're rightfully nervous. They know that they have to make contacts and connections. They know that they have to get into research labs and volunteer. They know all of these things. But it's important not to stress about it. It's important to have a deliberate plan of what you want to do and make sure that, just as I do with my research, instead of focusing on the big question and how you might answer it such that you get overwhelmed, you can parse it into smaller questions that are more easily attainable.